So before we get to Karl, let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
Every part of you wants to be there for your child. You don't want to send them out to be homeless on the street. You don't want that. Like, who would? But sometimes you have no choice. Part of the problem is that we have pathologized addiction to the point where the addict is treated like a victim on the level of a cancer patient.
You know, you're not kidding. I mean, they actually say that it's disease. Matt Walsh weighing in last night on the podcast as it relates to the Rob Reiner murders. It may have involved the rich and famous, but addiction and attacks on family and turmoil that results out of it is relatable around the nation. We'll discuss.
Number 2.
And the idea that your faith, that it somehow allows people to subject you to the most horrific slaughter and violence is inexcusable in any democracy anywhere in this world.
That is so true. Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL, anti-Semitism raging around the world. It's time to stand up and be counted. Don't just say it's not me, it's not my problem, I don't feel that way. You got to stand behind Israel and the Jewish community. And if nothing else, it's because those attacks are coming after Christianity in the West. They're in the line of fire too. I think you should realize that.
Number 1.
If he's still standing when this is over, this is a fatal, major mistake to our standing in the world. If after all this, Maduro is still in power, that's the worst possible signal you could send to Russia, China, Iran.
Senator Lindsey Graham, you are right. Going for the takedown. President Trump to address the nation. Front and center will be the ousting of Maduro in Venezuela. As he says, no tankers in, no tankers out. Karl Rove joins us now. Hey, Karl.
First, I want to be clear. I was ready. I was not, you didn't have to wait for me. I was eager. I was at the front. I was at the tape, ready for the gunshot.
So I did not have to buy time.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. I'm going to correct the record then in real time. Karl was ready. I'm going to go. I don't need a second source. Karl, so what do you think the president should say tonight? He's going to talk economy. And when I saw that he's making this speech, I thought a lot of these other networks are going to choose not to take it. If he wants to make just on Venezuela, and he says, obviously that would be it. But when he wants to talk about a kind of a year in review, do you think some of these networks are going to bail on it?
I think they might. I mean, it depends on how well the case has been made by the White House that this is worth, taking their existing program and setting it aside. Look, many is a time when the White House communicators will say, let's do a nationwide, speak to the nation on television. But you've got to sell that case to people so that the large number of networks put it on. So if the White House is saying we're going to be talking about the economy, they may say, look, we covered the rally last week on last Wednesday when the president was in Mount Pocono. We covered Secretary Vance, Vice President Vance's on Tuesday when he was in Allentown. We've been covering that, and this is, unless there is something new that the White House can convince us is going to be significantly different and newsworthy, that some networks are going to say we've got fill in the blank, a very popular program on which we've sold advertising.
So, he will talk about that. They said he's going to talk about the shrinking trade deficit. He's going to talk about the shrinking deficit overall, down $600 billion from where it was, the economy. But he's going to, most importantly, and I know your ears perked up on this yesterday when he put this out, the blockade on oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela. That's significant, isn't it?
Yeah, look, the only thing keeping Maduro in power are two things. One is that he is providing the oil for Cuba. And without the discounted Cuban oil, he would not have the Cuban intelligence service surrounding him and would not have Cuban, intelligence agents serving as his personal bodyguards. The economy, to the degree that there is economy left in Venezuela, that's sort of, moving along, it's because of the sale of Venezuelan oil to Cuba at a discounted price and to others wherever he can find it, much of it being sent into the illegal market around the world.
So now we have a situation where I think, blew up 3 boats, drug boats the other day. You have Republicans and Democrats being briefed and being shown video yesterday, and as usual, a cut on party lines about what was going on behind closed doors and about this action. Tell me if you agree with Lindsey Graham on this. Cut 9.
There's no doubt in my mind that we have the legal authority to blow up these boats, interdict these boats. In 1989, President Bush, 41, literally invaded Panama, dropping the 82nd Airborne, taking the president of Panama out, putting him in American prison because he was a narco-terrorist drug dealer. There is no difference. In 1994, President Clinton took down the military takeover, the junta, the generals who took over Haiti, and brought back civilian control of Haiti. He was right to do that. Bush 41 was right to clean up Panama. Trump is right to deal with a narco-terrorist state called Venezuela.
So if you agree with that, and number two, how should the president, knowing that, how should the president address that today if he looks at the others for an example?
Well, I totally agree with it. And look, I think the president agrees with that. I think the president understands that Venezuela represents a threat to the United States
yes.
and our interests in the region, that it is a narco regime that is illegitimate. He has now stolen how many elections? You know, one of the candidates he defeated, quote, defeated in the last election was given the Nobel Peace Prize because the world community recognizes he is keeping hold of power over this once prosperous country by means of thuggery. So I think if his goal is regime change, the most powerful thing he can say tonight is, my goal is regime change. I think the continent in which we live will be more prosperous and more free and more at peace if Maduro is driven from power, and I intend that the United States will play an intimate role in that along with our allies in the region. I mean, there is a wave moving through Central and South America, rejecting the old style
yes.
Policies of the left. And Maduro represents the worst of the worst. I mean, he is, after Cuba, he is the most left-wing regime in the entire region. And not only is he a leftist, he's a crook. I mean, so if you take a communist ideology and mix it in with a guy who's a criminal, it's a bad thing for not only his country, but for the entire region.
And Karl, for the longest time, you heard this when you guys were in office. Why are you worried about it? Let's worry about our backyard. Enough of the Middle East. So the president's actually focusing on it. Panama was first. Argentina, helping their economy helps us. And then you have Bolivia have an election, put a conservative in there. Chile the other day put a conservative in there. Now you have Venezuela, which is home to Russia, Iran, Hezbollah, as well as China. If we could, this is a major, smart, big picture push to help the welfare of our nation long term. I couldn't be more impressed with it.
Yeah, and look, remember, who has the largest oil reserves in the world? Venezuela. And interestingly enough, unlocking those reserves will benefit the United States because we have the refining capacity in the Gulf Coast, starting in Corpus Christi, Texas, and moving around through to Louisiana to take the heavy crude that they have, which is distinctly different than the crude that we have in the United States, and refine it. So they're going to be coming to the U.S. saying, the largest Citgo, that's the government-run oil company, is actually in the United States. And so this is going to be a boon for America and the world, let alone Venezuela, which, again, Venezuela was once one of the most prosperous countries in the hemisphere, and today it's one of the poorest. Why? Because communist ideology and corruption, the corruption of a criminal class that runs that country, has destroyed the wealth and prosperity of those people.
So I want to talk about the Vanity Fair story. Chris Whipple, who you might be familiar with. Chris Whipple, yes. Who wrote the story on the Chiefs of Staff. It was an excellent book. He sat down with 11 interviews with Susie Wiles, and they are not happy in the Trump White House. Before I get your take on what you might have read or excerpts that you might have listened to, here's Chris Whipple, cut 25.
I've been reading all of the speculation about why did she do it? Why would she talk to this guy? My theory of the case is that with this White House and with Susie Wiles, it's never four-dimensional chess. It might not even be chess. I mean, they just do what they want to do. And Susie was remarkably candid. I think, look, I wrote a book about White House Chiefs of Staff that was pretty fair and nonpartisan. And she worked in the Reagan White House under Jim Baker, one of the major characters in my book. I think, look, my own theory, I can only tell you what she said, which is that she felt that Trump in his first term was vilified by the press, never got a fair shake. And I think she thought I would give her a fair hearing.
So, and you know some of the things that have come out in it. Your thoughts about what you've seen so far?
Well, it's a look inside. It's candid. I think Susie Wiles is right to say that some of it lacks context. I've read both the Vanity Fair articles online, and also, though it's candid, I don't see anything in there that is essentially hurtful to the administration. There are things that are revealing. I'm sure there are things that people say, I wish she hadn't said that. But at the end of the day, what matters is what kind of a relationship does she have with the president? Has this undermined his trust in her? And my sense is
no.
The answer is no. Yeah, because look, she has played a vital role in his life for the last, 4 or 5 years, increasingly over the last 3 years, and he trusts her in a way that I don't see that he's trusted any former chief of staff that he's had, whether it was Reince Priebus or you name it. He has a relationship with her that is powerful, and I think unlikely to be shaken by.
It's so different. One thing you have to say, Karl, between the two terms. He's got the people there. He's standing by them. They're not without controversy. There's not days when they have bad days or bad decisions. And he's just the opposite of the first time. Instead of let's get him out of here, it's no, not moving. Whether it's Hegseth, whether it's Kristi Noem and Susie Wiles. There's something about somebody when they're with you through the worst of times, which is after 2020, after DeSantis isolated her and she thought she was unhireable. And then they're together. They work it out. Would you stick with me? Yes. And then he gets the nomination, you're still there, and then he wins the election, would you be my chief of staff? It's almost as if you're so comfortable with each other, you could have bad days and good days. And I just think that the best thing to happen to President Trump if Susie stays for 4 years. But you must have liked it. You must have gotten offers like that when you were with George W. Bush. You were with him from day one, right? From his governor days.
Yeah.
You with 41, you have that rich history. You must have had opportunities with magazines, People Magazine, Vanity Fair, whatever it was, to do sit-downs. Did you do them? Would you be reluctant to do them?
Only if the communication shop told me to. And frankly, I had one with a well-known reporter who came in, and it was a strange interview. First of all, I was like a babe in the wilderness. What I should have had was somebody from the communication shop sitting in my office with my assistant, Susan Ralston, and I with a tape recorder while this guy, he would ask a question. I give him an answer. He would then write down the answer, repeating it, repeating the words as he wrote down what he was writing. And he would not have gotten right what I just said, so I'd have to correct him. And in my opinion, he came up with a totally bizarre quote that he put into a story that I never said. And, I regretted having done it. I didn't want to do it to begin with. And the White House communication shop said, do it. But I should have thought ahead and said, if you don't trust him, what do you need to do in order to ensure that it's completely accurate and fair? And that was have a recording as well. But no, to the degree that you do those things as a senior White House aide, you should do them only because the press, the communications types tell you this is needful in helping give a push an issue or give people an understanding of how we operate.
90 seconds left, but George W. Bush did come up in this, and that the USAID was blown up by Elon Musk. They said it was a mistake, and Rubio was there to save it. And he took a call from the 43rd president on PEPFAR, right? PEPFAR, rather. And that is a very effective humanitarian group operation that they were going to get rid of. And he wanted to make sure from the Secretary of State that he wasn't going to get rid of it, and he didn't, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to comment on what the former president may or may not have done. I will say that he feels very strongly about PEPFAR, which is an effort by the U.S. that involves faith-based groups and non-governmental organizations in helping to provide medication and treatment for AIDS and malaria, and primarily in Africa, and it has saved an estimated 25 million lives. And it is one of the most remarkable things because here we have, using like the Catholic Church and other religious organizations and private groups, you are in essence creating a health network that reaches into the darkest corners of Africa in order to save lives. I was in a part of Nigeria, and a governor of the Delta region said, "Do you know what are the most popular names for children?" This is about 8 or 9 years ago. What are the most popular names for children in my part of Nigeria? I said, "I have no idea." He said, "George and Laura." He said, "Tell the United States thank you for saving my people." I mean, he was very emotional about it. And the president, former president, has gone a number of years to help in an AIDS facility somewhere in Africa with no fanfare. And yet, when he arrives, there'll be crowds lining the roads from the airport into the city, capital city, because of the thankfulness of the people of Africa for this aid and assistance from the people of the United States.
And the program's still there. Karl, have a fantastic Christmas if I don't talk to you next week.
You bet, buddy. Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Back in a moment. Jason Riley joins us now, Wall Street Journal columnist, Manhattan Institute senior fellow, Fox News contributor, and best-selling author. He has a column out today, quite intriguing. Donald Trump's affordability failures will cost him, pun intended. The economy has gone from one of the president's best issues with American voters to one of the worst. Jason, welcome back.
Good morning, Brian.
How much is he responsible for in taking politics away? If you just look at from numbers and policy, how much of his 34% approval rating should he be responsible for legitimately?
Well, at this point in his presidency, Brian, I think he needs to own the economy. And that's certainly what voters are telling pollsters. That Fox News poll in November was quite devastating in showing that voters think that President Trump is responsible for what's happening right now, regardless of what he inherited back in January. So I think, regardless of how much he thinks he should accept responsibility for this, the American people are looking at his policies and how those policies are contributing to what they see. And what they don't see is what he promised on the campaign trail, which is lower prices. Their prices have gone up for food, for energy, for housing, and so forth. They continue to go up in many cases, and they seem to be blaming this administration for that situation.
Well, not all food, and gas has never been lower, right? I mean, it's been about 4.5 years low, and it's going even lower. I think it's now down to $55 a barrel in terms of oil. And I think that it could probably drop closer to $2. So that'll help. You saw what he did adjusting tariffs. And you saw that there's certain products that have come down, and the rate of growth increased prices. It is 2% as opposed to what he inherited. Does any of that matter?
It matters to some extent, but the big picture is that it doesn't seem to be mattering enough in terms of helping him with his job approval. Remember, the economy was one of his strong suits in terms of how voters viewed his capabilities. Today, it's one of his weakest points with voters. Somewhere around more than 70% of the country, I believe right now, or close to 70%, thinks that things are going in the wrong direction. And you're right. He has, some of these food prices are coming down because he's reversed himself on the border taxes, reversed himself on bananas, reversed himself on coffee, which to me is an indication that he knows that these have been hurting in some sectors. And also remember, Brian, we were told that these tariffs were supposed to lead to more manufacturing jobs in this country. That also has not happened. There's been a net loss of manufacturing jobs over the past year. And particularly if you look at manufacturing in those areas that use some of the items that have been heavily tariffed, like steel and aluminum, so auto part manufacturing and car manufacturing and so forth. So again, these policies don't seem to be working on his terms. And I think what he doesn't want to do is do what Biden did, which was go and tell people, no, you don't understand. Things are really, really going well. You just don't realize it. Or it's all my predecessor's fault. I don't think that worked out very well for Joe Biden, and I hope that's not what the president does tonight in his address. I think he should say, listen, I understand what you're saying. I'm going to work to change things and implement policies that are going to have better outcomes than what we see today. But I don't think he wants to tell people that they're delusional about what they see right in front of them.
But you can point out things to the nature where the previous administration spent $6 trillion. Rocketed inflation up to 9%. What he has done is cut the deficit by $600 billion and the trade deficit as well. So we are getting on a fiscal path. And what he can honestly say is, in terms of tax returns, you're soon going to be able to write off your car purchase, your interest rates. when the taxes on tips and Social Security, there'll be a tax break in there. Child tax credit is going to be coming your way, and more tax returns coming up in March and April. If you talk to Scott Besson, he says you're going to feel it in first and second quarter. Your thoughts?
We'll see. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, neither does Scott Besson, but I don't know.
He does have policies.
He does have policies. I'm just saying that the public does not seem to be buying this. Voters do not seem to be buying this wait and see approach. They want to see more results now. And the president is right now telling people, in the Christmas season, your kids should get by on fewer toys, fewer dolls, and so forth. And we just need to muddle through here. And I don't think that's what the public wants to hear. And that's not what they were promised back when he was running for president for re-election.
So Black Friday was relatively strong, I guess, but people say they might be putting stuff on their credit cards. But how much is depending on the Fed and interest rates?
Well, yes, some of this will depend on the Fed and interest rates, and there's a big debate, obviously, of whether the Fed should cut rates further than they did. Powell says one of the reasons he didn't go further, that's the Fed chairman, Powell said he didn't go further, is because he didn't trust the jobs report numbers. He thought they would be revised downward, and we saw some of that in the jobs reports that have recently come out, that in 3 of the past 6 months, I believe, there have been a net job loss. The economy has shed jobs. And that's one of the reasons Powell has been hesitant to go much further. Donald Trump wants him to go a lot further. He wants easier money, so do a lot of investors. But I think the Fed is right to be cautious here. And so we'll have to see how that plays out. But instead of leaning on the Fed the way Donald Trump is doing, I think he would do better to focus again on these border taxes and what they're doing to economic growth and the uncertainty out there. I mean, we have less international trade now than we used to. That means that freer trade and more trade means lower prices for consumers because it means more competition for goods and for services and so forth. And so I think he'd be more effective in focusing on the border taxes and less of, I think they put less energy towards trying to pressure the Federal Reserve into lowering interest rates further.
Yeah, I guess we're going to get a new Fed chair, and then some of that will take care of itself. What's it going to take to get credit card interest rates down? Because people also said, hey, if you want those mortgage rates to go down, get the Fed to cut rates. Not really. Now we hear from experts like you that it's the 10-year yield people are looking at. What changed?
Well, I don't think we've seen the growth overall in the economy that is necessary. I think that, and again, businesses, there's uncertainty out there in the economy. You see it in hiring, you see it in capital investment. Businesses don't like uncertainty. And I think what a lot of these border taxes have done is to inject a lot of uncertainty. So businesses, for instance, aren't hiring. It's not that they're laying off a lot of people. We don't see that reflected in the numbers, but they're very, very reluctant to take on more workers. And I think that, again, is due to the uncertainty out there in general. And I think that's what the president needs to focus on, stability. And I think that Fed needs to focus on a stable dollar. And I think that if you do that, the rest will take care of itself.
The USMCA getting renegotiated, that would be a big boost because you know exactly what we're doing with 2 of our trading partners, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think, again, certainty. And those, Canada and Mexico are 2 of our biggest trading partners. And I think we need to make sure we have a solid trading relationship with both of those places. And, particularly with Mexico, Brian, a lot of economic uncertainty in Mexico drives people north in that country. And I think when they see more economic stability in Mexico, they're more likely to stay in Mexico. So you can see an overlap there between trade policy and migration concerns. And of course, migration has been one of the president's strengths. And I'm sure we'll hear about that tonight. He has delivered on that promise, which was to seal the border and take care of illegal immigration. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
One thing I'm surprised he hasn't done yet is just go to the border and talk to Border Patrol people. All the cameras will follow you because people just say, oh, the border's closed. I guess it's fine. We pulled Bill Malugin out of the border. We put him in Washington because there's nothing going on. The president should go to where the border wall is being built and just talk to some Border Patrol people. See, let the press see this, observe it. Because, it wasn't too long ago when we had thousands of people, including Chinese in roller bags, just crossing the border.
Oh, right. I mean, he's delivered. I mean, I think he's even getting reluctantly, he's getting credit from the press for what he's done on the border. They think he's going overboard now with some of the ICE raids and so forth. But I think in terms of reducing illegal crossings, the data is the data. I think even the mainstream media has been forced to acknowledge that this has been a success story for President Trump. So that his actions speak for themselves in that sense, Brian. If he wanted to go down there for a photo op, I don't think I'd have a problem with that. But whether it's necessary, he's gotten it done. That's one thing he's delivered on.
Right. Jason Riley, check out his column in the Wall Street Journal. Donald Trump's affordability failures will cost him. He'll talk about that tonight and talk about the optimism he has for first and second quarter. Jason, we'll see how it goes. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Waltz is a grossly incompetent man. There's something wrong with him. Okay, Somalians ripped off that state for billions of dollars. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country.
Donald Trump brought this to the attention like this is something brand new. This is not brand new, and it's been being worked on, but he made it white hot and very dangerous.
That is Governor Walz. He is overseeing a huge scandal that's been around for years. They covered it over. Nobody really reported it. There's been rumors of it, but it's so much worse than people could have imagined. The one person probably not surprised by it, but glad it's finally coming out, is Majority Whip Tom Emmer of Minnesota, the 6th District. Congressman, welcome back. You know, we discussed this when you were in studio last time, but this is at least $1 billion, and it's 95% from the Somali community. How did they pull this off? How did we just now become aware of this?
Well, great to be with you again, Brian. And I just have to open by saying thank you to you and all of your colleagues at Fox News for talking about this issue. It's amazing. As I told you when we last met, we've been trying to sound the alarm on this fraud for 3 years. It goes way beyond the largest pandemic fraud case in the country called the Feeding Our Future scandal, which was $250 million. And like you point out, the number's $1 billion, and they're continuing to count. You got Medicaid housing fraud, you got daycare fraud, you've got fraud everywhere. And by the way, you may not know this, but Tim Walz, who's been our governor in Minnesota for 7 years, on last Friday, Brian, he decided to create a new government position for someone to deal with the fraud. 7 years too late. Wow. And by the way, the coverage that we're talking about, our worthless newspaper in Minnesota, the leading headline was Walz trying to get ahead of the fraud.
What a joke. I mean,
it totally is. They're still trying to cover for him.
And how much does this matter? Not to you, but if you go ahead and say, hey, what's going on with the Feeding the Future program? What's going on with the Autistic Children's Program? What's going on with the millions of dollars going to the community and it's leaving this country? What's happening here? They say, well, are you picking on me because I'm racist? Is it because I'm black? Is that why you're coming after me? And it just freezes people in their boots. And they go, okay, maybe I don't need to be called a racist. So they just let it go. Or they pay off that person to not bring it up again.
Yeah, Brian, you remember in our history, we've referred to the Italian mob, we've referred to the Irish mob. I mean, this just happens to be, as you point out, over 90% of the people being charged with these crimes, with the fraud in Minnesota, happen to come from the Somali community. Calling out a criminal is not racist. And that's where Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar get off. Tim's trying to say these are our neighbors. Well, I got news for you. If you're my neighbor and you're breaking the law, I want you held accountable. And I will call you out for what you are, which is a criminal. Right. And look, you asked me earlier, how does this happen? It happens. I would go back to 2017, 2018. We had a Democrat in the Attorney General's office named Lori Swanson. She was investigating and prosecuting Somali daycare fraud. Brian, she ran for the Democrat nomination to run for governor against Tim Walz. When Tim Walz won, he and Keith Ellison, who gave us Ilhan Omar, Keith became our new attorney general. The first action Keith took as attorney general was there will be no more investigations without my express approval.
That's an important point.
It's very important because here's the other piece. These guys need that community, especially the criminal element, to vote for them. Otherwise, they don't get elected. There's about 80,000 Somalis in Minnesota. You've got Tim Walz and Keith Ellison cannot get votes from greater Minnesota. In fact, Tim Walz only won 13 of 87 counties. They
put him in office.
Keith Ellison won by less than a point. So these are the votes that get them over the top. Right. And if you're purposely looking the other way, you're complicit. Our U.S. attorney has said that the fraud goes all the way to the highest level of government. So,
gotcha.
Brian, you can figure out who that is. Right now, we need to find out who was complicit, and they need to be held accountable. And I tell you what, if the whistleblowers coming forward are real, and I think they are, and if they can document what they're claiming, which is that they not only told Tim Walz about the fraud, but he ignored them and then retaliated against him. If that can be documented, Brian, he should be prosecuted.
So, quick thing. This just happened. Frustrated GOP moderates joined Democrats to force an Obamacare extension vote. And you talk about Rob Bresnahan. You talk about Michael Lawler, Brian Fitzpatrick, and others. What's going on there? Are you against extending? Because I know Mike Johnson is against extending those Obamacare subsidies.
Well, where I come from, and we should have been talking about this a lot more, this isn't about the subsidies. This is about the Unaffordable Care Act. People got to be reminded, and I wouldn't put the former president's name on it at all. They called it the Affordable Care Act. They enacted it 14 years ago. When they did, they told us three things. One, you're going to get to keep your doctor. Two, you're going to have more choices. And three, it's going to lower your premiums. Brian, they're 0 for 3. They broke the health care
So what's
market.
Next? Well, I hear you, but what's next?
This is what we're working on. The Republicans want to lower costs, give patients a choice, and get to the root causes of the health care crisis. That's why this week we're voting on the Lower Health Care Premiums for All Act, which the bill would increase PBM transparency.
Okay.
It would appropriate cost-sharing reduction payments to lower premiums and provide certainty to the individual market. By the way, Brian, that was in the big, beautiful bill.
All right. Majority Whip Tom Emmer. Quite busy. A lot to discuss.
We're proud of what we're doing, able to lay it out very directly to these senators and soon to the House. But it's all classified. We can't talk about it now. We're also going to tomorrow allow the HASC and SASC to see the unedited video of the September 2nd, alongside with Admiral Bradley, who has done a fantastic job, has made all the right calls, and we're glad he'll be there to do it. But in keeping with long-standing Department of War policy, Department of Defense policy, of course, we're not going to release a top-secret full unedited video of that to the general public. HASC and SASC and appropriate committees will see it, but not the general public.
Senator Lindsey Graham weighs in now. That's what Pete Hegseth yesterday. Lindsey Graham also talked to the press right after that. He's chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, member of the Appropriations Judiciary Committee, and tremendous knowledge of military. Senator, do you think that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, made the right decision there?
I like Pete a lot. I think he's done a really good job. Here's what I would do. I'd release it to every member of Congress. Listen, we got videos all over TV showing us blowing up votes. I am all for blowing these votes up. This is very legal. We invaded Panama in 1989 as a country under Bush 41. We dropped the 82nd Airborne in. We took Noriega, the president of Panama, out of office and put him in an American jail. So don't tell me that Trump can't do what he's doing. What I would tell Pete and others is share it with everybody in the Senate and the House and let you make your own judgment. I'm okay with what happened.
What did you think of the video that you saw yesterday?
I'm okay with what happened.
All right, so because Democrats have a totally different idea.
Well, it's fine. They got a totally different idea about everything. And that's why we have an election, right? Their idea is to withdraw from Afghanistan and obliterate our border and raise your taxes and impose Obamacare on you. If we don't win this election, we got nobody to blame but ourselves. Our ideas are better than theirs. Trump has secured the border in a way that nobody could have believed a year ago, right? Trump is going after ISIS wherever ISIS lives. He destroyed the caliphate in his first term. Biden let it come back by withdrawing from Afghanistan. He started giving money back to Iran and obliterated the border. Listen, we got a good story to tell. We need to tell it. The economy is getting better, but it's going to take a while because they were just as bad with the economy as they were with national security, and we need to talk about that more. But I've got no problem blowing up the boats. Admiral Bradley is not a war criminal. He's a patriot. I want to take Maduro out. I'm tired of playing games here. He's a narco-terrorist, illegitimate leader of Venezuela. He didn't win the election. He stole the election. He's aligned with Hezbollah. He dumped tens of thousands of people into our country to wreak havoc on us. He needs to go.
All right, so I want you to hear Tammy Duckworth, also a veteran. You're in the military too. Cut 6.
I worry about our uniformed services, our men and women in uniform. They deserve to know if they're going to go to war, that it is truly a war, that they have the American people behind them, that Congress has voted on it.
He's comparing it to the Obama drone strikes. Do you see that as a fair comparison?
I don't see that as a fair comparison because, again, we had an AUMF in Iraq and Afghanistan. These are two completely different situations. And in fact, what I think we need to do, again, is go back to the beginning of this. What is it that the Trump administration is trying to do here? Is it regime change? If it's regime change, then come to us and say, hey, we need regime change in Venezuela, and here's the evidence, here's what we think, and then Congress will deliberate, and then we will vote on it.
So she doesn't like the comparison, but she says if you ask, she'll say okay.
Well, no, she won't say okay. I like her a lot. She sacrificed for her nation, but she's wrong. For 33 years, I used to be a military lawyer as a judge, defense attorney, and a prosecutor. This is familiar ground for me. In 1989, President Bush 41, without congressional approval, took Noriega out as the Panama leader, literally using military force. We lost troops in the endeavor. He went to jail. Noriega did. Clinton changed the regime in Haiti as a military dictatorship. He restored civilian control. Trump went into Grenada to deal with the expansion of Cuban influence in our backyard. They did all this without a declaration of war and without approval by the Congress. I used to do this for a living. We've declared war 5 times in the history of the nation. Does that mean if Congress doesn't declare war, the commander-in-chief cannot use military force? No, it doesn't. We've had use of military force without a declaration of war as the norm in this country. The exception is declaring war. You cannot have 535 commander-in-chiefs. That will lead to chaos. If you don't like the decision of a commander-in-chief as a member of Congress, you can restrict funding for the operation. You can impeach them if you think they're doing something illegal. So, as to Venezuela, President Trump is doing what Bush and Clinton and others did to regulate narco-terrorism in our backyard. He has all the legal authority he needs. I hope Maduro is taken out. We'll be safer if he is. He should have been taken out a long time ago. Then I want to deal with a communist dictatorship in Cuba. While President Trump is in office for the next 3 years, I hope we will clear out the narco-terrorist states in our backyard, that it will be harder to get drugs into America because those making money off of it in these nations no longer exist. I hope that we can deal with Hamas and Hezbollah while President Trump is in office so Iran doesn't have the influence it's had in the past.
So, Senator Lindsey Graham, our guest, obviously, Senator Maduro now, no tankers in, no tankers out. I mean, the clock is ticking. How long can this guy last? And what do you hope? Go ahead. What do you think?
He'll leave. I mean, so what should we do when Putin says no to the next peace deal, which I think he will? I applaud the administration for trying to get a solution to Russia-Ukraine that Europe can live with, Ukraine can live with, and we can live with. Putin's not going to quit till somebody makes him back to Venezuela. How do you stay in power if your power is based on illicit oil sales and we've cut that off? So I like the strategy of strangling the economy of the bad guy. I'm not suggesting we invade Venezuela. I don't mind land strikes against narco-terrorist targets, but the seizing of ships and the embargo of illicit oil transfers will be the end of Maduro. When Putin says no, and he will, we need to pass my bill in the Senate with 85 co-sponsors that would allow President Trump to impose tariffs, not sanctions, on countries that buy cheap Russian oil to prop up his war machine. We need to do more to help Ukraine militarily. Now, what I've laid out is a strategy to take down bad guy regime in Venezuela, a strategy to push Putin to the table without invading anybody.
So a couple of things. It looks like this underwater attack submarine got its first target of a Russian sub in port. It looks like it blew it up. It also looks like Ukraine is making some gains on a counterattack in a town I think is called Kupyansk.
Yes.
And we also see that Peskov weighed in yesterday on what they're working out with Ukraine, which is a 20-point peace plan. He says they reiterate that Russia wants to end the war but seeks to achieve its goals, which, according to the Institute of Study of War, includes decapitating and replacing the Ukrainian government, destroying the Ukrainian military, and undermining Western unity. None of those three are happening, have happened, and will happen. So do you think this is all wasted exercise?
Here's what I think. I think Putin will come to the peace table when the price gets too great. We know he doesn't mind losing soldiers. That's not a price he really cares about. But when his revenue drops and he can't prop up his war machine and his way of life and the oligarchs begin to change, he'll come to the table. China is the largest purchaser of cheap Russian oil. China is the largest purchaser of Iranian oil. China is one of the largest purchasers of oil from Venezuela. What does that have in common? China is buying cheap oil from bad guys to benefit their economy, and they need to pay a price. I'd like to have a good relationship with China, but China needs to be good for that to happen. So I am urging President Trump to go after China and other people, other countries that prop up Putin's war machine. What he's doing in Venezuela is the right model. I will be introducing tomorrow some major legislation about the ability to seize ships. What we're doing in Venezuela is seizing ships carrying sanctioned oil illegally. We need to transfer that model to the Russian shadow fleet.
About 1,000. They have about 1,000 tankers, the so-called ghost tankers that are out there. Now, a couple have been targeted by Ukraine and they've captured them. Are you saying that we should be doing the same thing?
Absolutely. The free world should be seizing these ships that operate illegally. We've sanctioned the pipelines coming out of Russia. The ability to distribute oil and gas through pipelines coming from Russia has really been reduced. When President Trump sanctioned the two largest oil companies in Russia, it really mattered. Without the shadow fleet, Russia cannot survive to prosecute this war economically. Go after the ships.
Senator, I don't know if you saw 60 Minutes on Sunday. We know what Japan's doing. So Germany is just building up. They're increasing their military by, I think, recruiting's up 70%. And Japan is doing the same thing. And the message throughout Europe is the same thing. Now, people might not like it, but what Trump is saying is NATO. You got to step up. Not only 5%. You just got to think to yourself, how do I stop the next invasion? And they've gotten the message right now to defend themselves. Russia's got to be saying to themselves, well, that didn't work out. They added two formidable countries into NATO. Now Germany is rearming. We know they can fight. Eventually, we hope. We know Poland's building a wall, and they got the message a long time ago. Finland and Sweden get it.
Yeah.
So now we have France, who's getting the message. I'm not sure they're capable of doing anything, and we'll see. So now all of a sudden, our allies for years, and you were frustrated with John McCain and with George Bush and with others, they get the message now. Do you think the message is going to be sustainable?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think Putin should get the NATO Man of the Year award. Putin has done more to wake up Europe than anybody. Trump has kicked them in the ass, and it's worked. So what's happened? We're cheering on Germany and Japan having bigger and stronger militaries. 80 years ago, this year, was the end of World War II. If you had told somebody, a soldier, in 1945, in 2025, Americans would be cheering on Germany rearming and Japan rearming, they thought you were crazy. It shows you how the world changes. Out of the ashes of the Third Reich and Imperial Japan, over time we created two democracies that have aligned themselves with us. Now, that can happen over time in Gaza and the West Bank, but you got to get the Arabs to go in on the ground, stop preaching, killing the Jews, change the school system, on and on and on. So what has Putin achieved here? NATO is bigger. NATO is stronger. His economy is sanctioned to the hilt. More is coming. He's lost 1 million people. This is a big flop unless we give him a victory at the very end. China's watching. If this ends where Ukraine is still around, strong, independent, surviving, and Putin spent a lot and got very little, it will help China make a decision about Taiwan. It will deter China from invading Taiwan. If at the end we give Putin a big gift, then there goes Taiwan.
And where do you think we're at right now? My last question. Where you see the 2019 to 20 points?
I think we're in a good spot. I think we should not overly reward Putin. We can't kick all the Russians out of Ukraine, so there's not going to be a military victory by Ukraine, nor is Russia going to Kyiv. A diplomatic solution that prevents a third invasion, European troops on the ground, America committed to fighting with them if there's a third invasion, will deter a third invasion, deal with the Donbass in a way it doesn't entice China to take Taiwan, would be a great outcome.
And give
President Trump
guarantees.
is cleaning up Biden and Obama's mess, and I think he's done a hell of a good job. With the economy, it will get better over time.
I hear you. Senator Lindsey Graham, always impactful. Every word matters. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Senator.
Thank you.